Good evening. I'm Lawrence O'Donnell in Los Angeles, in for Keith Olbermann. A remarkable poll gives us the first solid picture of who the Tea Party movement really is. In our number 5 story tonight, they are older, they are whiter than America, and they earn more money and are better educated. That's right. The Tea Party is made up of elite, well-off intellectuals of sorts who are out of step with the real America, and they are very deeply confused. 84% of them think their movement reflects the view of most Americans, but 73% of them are conservative, while only 35% of the real America is. 92% want smaller government with fewer services, which only 50% of the real America want. 39% of real America correctly blames President Bush for most of the deficit. 6% of Tea Partiers do. Half of the real America wants government spending to create jobs, which only 17% of Tea Partiers want. And while only 19% of the real America call themselves angry at Washington, more than half of Tea Partiers do, which brings us neatly to today's Tea Party rally on the Capitol.
Hey, you look happy to me. You don't look angry. That's because you get it, and you are smart enough to get off your couch and do something about it. So this November, what do you say? Let's take back our country. How many of you think we're going to do it? I know we're going to do it. I know it. It is all about this coming November. We have to take the House, then the Senate, and 2 years from now, Barack Obama is a one-term president.
More on the Tea Partiers. They are more likely to be college grads. 14% have some fancy postgraduate degree versus just 10% of real America and 0% of tonight's Countdown hosts. 56% made more than $50,000 last year compared to just 44% of the real America, which might explain why 80% of them oppose a healthcare income tax for people making over $200,000. Tea Party icon Sarah Palin yesterday cited the American Tax Foundation's calculation that Americans worked 99 days this year to pay their taxes, but the foundation actually noted how low that number is and credited Obama tax cuts. No wonder, even though 64% of Tea Partiers think President Obama raised taxes, 52% of them think their own tax rate is fair. But 73% of them believe government benefits encourage the poor to remain poor, which might explain a theme at today's rally.
Nor do we believe in a government that confiscates our earnings and rewards people that don't earn and eats out our substance and drains American vitality. That's what's going on in America today.
One Tea Partier in the poll called their political views a conundrum. Maybe I don't want smaller government, she said. I guess I want smaller government and my Social Security. I didn't look at it from the perspective of losing things I need. I think I've changed my mind. Jodine White of Rocklin, California, tonight's best person in the world, or certainly best person in the Tea Party. Now let's bring in MSNBC political analyst Howard Fineman, also senior Washington correspondent and political columnist for Newsweek magazine. Thanks for joining us tonight, Howard. Howard, on one level, is it just not very surprising that an anti-tax movement turns out to be led by people who are in the upper tax brackets?
No, it's not surprising at all, Lawrence. And I just came from the beginning of the evening portion of today's festivities for the Tea Partiers. They're gathered, I'd say about 7,000 of them or so, in front of the Washington Monument. And I was just down there with them. And, you know, it's a pretty prosperous looking revolution, I would say. You know, some lawn chairs, a lot of, you know, pretty comfortable looking people, not wealthy people, but certainly not, the bonus marchers and no unemployed people. These are pretty comfortable people. And I swear one of the first people I ran into was a guy named Fred Grote, a 65-year-old guy from Chicago who is the retired vice president for finance of a major company, an old Goldwater guy who went to Carleton College in Minnesota and has a graduate degree from Harvard. And he was saying, I'm worried about the debt. So that's sort of the kind of people who were there. Not all of them with Harvard degrees, but I happened to run into one.
Well, it's hard to get more elite than that. Now, going back to the poll, Howard, 84% of them, 84% think that they reflect the American view, even though we've already shown they're a very small minority of American thinking. And that must be where all this talk about taking our country back comes from. I mean, if they knew actually what their numbers represented in the larger population of the country, what would their slogan be then?
Well, Lawrence, I think their view is kind of nostalgic and simplistic and sort of wrong. Actually, we've had this argument about the role of government in our life, ever since the Whiskey Rebellion and George Washington sending federal troops out to western Pennsylvania. That's nothing new. I think there's a yearning for simplicity and to give them credit for that. But they know that the world is more complicated than that. A lot of these people know it full well. And if you're going to take the country back, we have to take it back from ourselves. Because the main problem we've got, and I think the Tea Partiers are genuinely concerned about this, is the enormous debt that we've run up. But we've run it up because of the very programs that the Tea Partiers themselves support, such as Social Security and Medicare. So if we're taking it back, it's the kids who have to take it back, the next generation that has to take it back from us, not from anybody else.
Yeah, they say they want smaller government, they oppose government handouts, but more of them are collecting the biggest government handouts we have in Social Security checks and Medicare reimbursements. When you talk to them, Howard, are they capable of connecting those dots, or is it just this one Tea Partier I just quoted who gets that?
No, I think some of them get it. As a matter of fact, I went through that same analysis with this fellow Fred Grote from Chicago. I said, here you're telling me you want smaller government, you're worried about the debt. What about Social Security? And he said, well, I'm troubled that I'm taking it. But he didn't say abolish the program. He wanted to privatize that. Okay. I said, well, what about Medicare? I said, most seniors love Medicare. And he said, well, I don't have an answer for that. So maybe he's not the best person in the world, but he might be second best because he didn't have an answer. Talk to other Tea Partiers, they say, well, we paid into it. We deserve it because we paid in. But the more sophisticated of them know that both Social Security and Medicare are transfer payments from one generation to the next. They're not in, paid in savings accounts. I think a lot of them know it. But there's a yearning for something simpler and less complicated. And frankly, it's a little bit like Proposition 13, the old Proposition 13 from out in California, Lawrence. There was a property tax revolt a generation ago that helped propel Ronald Reagan to the presidency. Those were people in the suburbs who benefited from public service, from education, from roads and everything, but they didn't want to pay money to the next generation of them. That's what it was about. They didn't want it for them.
Howard Fineman of Newsweek and MSNBC, thank you for your report from the front this evening, Howard.
Thank you, Lawrence.